Don't touch me. Catherine Sterling yanked both hands behind her back. The black man's outstretched hand hung frozen in the air between them. Security really needs to check badges more carefully, she said loud enough for the entire ballroom to hear. Anyone can just walk in here now. 500 real estate executives turned to stare. The silence was deafening. What Catherine didn't know what would destroy everything she'd built in exactly 72 hours was that this man controlled $3.5 billion. He was the mystery investor she'd been desperately searching for all morning, and she'd just spit in his face. Have you ever watched someone burn their entire life to the ground in 8 seconds? Comment below with your city, so I can see how far this story travels. I said, don't touch me. Catherine Sterling's voice cut through the ballroom like a knife. She stepped backward, her eyes traveling from Marcus Thompson's face down to his plain black t-shirt, his dark jeans, his simple leather shoes. Her lip curled. This is a conference for actual investors, she continued. Real money, not whatever this is. She waved her hand at him like she was shooing away a stray dog. Marcus Thompson stood perfectly still. His hand remained extended for exactly 3 more seconds. Then he lowered it slowly, deliberately, and adjusted his cufflinks. I apologize if he began. You apologize. Catherine laughed. The sound was sharp, brittle. Do you even know where you are? This is the Miami Grand Real Estate Summit. Billion-dollar deals happen here, not diversity theater. Someone in the crowd inhaled sharply. Marcus said nothing. Let me guess. Catherine continued, warming to her performance. Someone told you this was a great networking opportunity. Someone said you should put yourself out there. Well, here's some free advice. She leaned closer, lowering her voice to a stage whisper that carried across the silent room. Know your place. Still, Marcus said nothing. His face remained calm, almost peaceful. This seemed to infuriate her more. What's wrong, Cat? Got your tongue? She turned to her circle of executives, all frozen with champagne glasses halfway to their lips. I bet he can't even spell real estate investment trust. Probably thinks REIT is a type of cracker. One executive, her CFO, a gray-haired man named Peterson, touched her elbow. Catherine, maybe we should... She shook him off violently. I'm making a point, Richard. Standards matter. This is exactly what's wrong with the industry today. Everyone thinks they deserve a seat at the table just because they showed up. Marcus finally spoke. His voice was quiet, steady, almost gentle. I understand completely, Ms. Sterling. Oh, so you know my name. Catherine's eyebrows rose. Been doing your homework? Let me save you some time. Sterling Properties doesn't do charity investments. We don't do minority outreach programs. We do business with serious people. I can see that. Good. She turned her back to him. Now move. You're blocking my view of the stage. The actual keynote speaker should be starting soon. Marcus adjusted his cufflinks again. Tom Ford, $500. Not that, Catherine noticed, and smiled slightly. Good luck with your presentation today, Ms. Sterling. I hope you find what you're looking for. He turned and walked away. No hurry, no anger, just quiet dignity that somehow made the moment worse. Behind him, Catherine's laugh rang out across the ballroom. Did you see that, the audacity? This is exactly why we need better security at these events. Her circle laughed nervously. A few phones had appeared, recording lights blinking red. 30 feet away, 3 venture capitalists huddled together, faces pale. Tell me that wasn't who I think it was, the first one whispered. The second one was already typing on his phone. His face went white. Oh my God. What? That's Marcus Thompson. Thompson Capital Partners. $3.5 billion under management. The Marcus Thompson, the one who funded 12 unicorns last year. The one Forbes calls the kingmaker of real estate tech. The one who's supposedly here as the mystery keynote speaker tomorrow. They looked across the room at Catherine, still holding court, still laughing, still completely oblivious. Isn't Sterling Properties looking for 200 million? 200 million that Thompson could write as a check without blinking. She just told him to know his place. The whispers began spreading. Investor to investor, executive to executive. Within 5 minutes, half the room knew. Within 10, everyone did. Everyone except Catherine Sterling. 48 hours earlier, Marcus Thompson had stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his Chicago penthouse, watching the sunrise paint Lake Michigan gold. His phone buzzed on the marble counter next to his untouched coffee. "Daddy!" The voice came from the hallway. Soft, sleepy. Marcus turned to see his 8-year-old daughter Zoe, padding toward him in her purple pajamas, clutching a stuffed elephant named Mr. Wrinkles. "Hey, baby girl." He scooped her up, settled her on his hip. "What are you doing awake? It's only 6. I heard you talking on the phone." She rubbed her eyes. "Are you going away again?" Marcus felt the familiar twist in his chest, the guilt that never quite went away. "Just for 2 days, sweetheart. I'll be back Friday night. But my recital is Saturday morning." "I know. I'll be there, front row, I promise." Zoe's small fingers played with his collar. "You promised last time, too, for my art show." The words hit harder than any boardroom confrontation ever had. "I know, baby. I'm sorry about that. But this time..." "Grandma says you work too much." Zoe's voice was matter-of-fact. "She says Mommy would tell you to slow down." Marcus closed his eyes for a moment. 3 years since Maya passed. 3 years of trying to be both parents. 3 years of never quite getting it right. "Your grandma's pretty smart," he said softly. "So are you gonna slow down?" Marcus looked at his daughter's face, Maya's eyes, Maya's stubborn chin, Maya's way of cutting straight to the truth. "Tell you what," he said. "This trip to Miami, I'm going to make it quick. Just 1 meeting in and out, and then I'm taking the whole next week off. Just you and me." Zoe's face lit up. "Really, the whole week?" "The whole week. We can go to the zoo, the aquarium, whatever you want." "Can we get ice cream for breakfast?" "We can negotiate." She giggled the best sound in Marcus's world and threw her arms around his neck. "I love you, Daddy." "I love you too, baby girl, more than all the stars." It was what Maya used to say. What Marcus still said every night at bedtime, every morning at breakfast, every goodbye. Zoe pulled back, suddenly serious. "Daddy, why do you have to go to Miami?" "There's a company there that needs help. They do real estate stuff helping people find homes, but they're in trouble, and I might be able to help them." "Are they nice people?" Marcus thought about the file his team had prepared on Sterling Properties, the revenue projections, the market position, the leadership team's background. "I don't know yet, sweetheart. That's what I'm going to find out." "Mommy always said you can tell nice people by how they treat waiters." Marcus smiled. Maya's wisdom living on through their daughter. "Your mommy was right about everything." "She was right about you too." Zoe touched his cheek with her small hand. "She said you were the best man she ever knew." The lump in Marcus's throat made it hard to speak. "I'm trying to be baby. Every day I'm trying." 2 hours later, Marcus sat in his home office, video conferencing with his managing partner, David Chen. "The Sterling Properties file is complete," David said. "I'm sending it to you now." Marcus scrolled through the document on his tablet. Revenue declining, cash reserves critical, board pushing for emergency funding. How desperate are they? 45 days until they fold. They need 200 million minimum. We're the only fund still willing to take a meeting. What happened to the other investors? David hesitated. Concerns about leadership. What kind of concerns? Nothing documented, just whispers. Former employees talking about culture problems, a few harassment complaints that were settled quietly. David paused. The CEO, Catherine Sterling. She's got a reputation. What kind of reputation? The kind where people stop talking when she walks into a room. The kind where turnover in the executive suite is 40% annually. The kind where the diversity page on their website shows stock photos instead of actual employees. Marcus looked at the leadership team photo on his screen. 8 executives, all white, in one of the most diverse cities in America. But the technology is solid. The technology is excellent, revolutionary even. Their platform could transform commercial real estate transactions. That's why I think it's worth a look despite the red flags. Marcus thought about Zoe's words. You can tell nice people by how they treat waiters. Book me a flight to Miami, he said. But David, don't announce who I am. I want to observe first. You're doing the plain clothes thing again. People show you who they really are when they think you have nothing. And if Sterling turns out to be everything the whispers say... Marcus looked at the photo of Maya on his desk. Her smile, her eyes, her unwavering moral compass that had made him a better man every day they were together. Then we walk away, he said. Some deals aren't worth any amount of money. Across the country in Miami, Catherine Sterling's morning was not going as planned. What do you mean Blackstone canceled? Her voice echoed off the marble floors of her office. Her assistant, Jennifer, flinched. They said scheduling conflicts, same as Goldman and Morgan Stanley. 3 of the biggest real estate investors in the country all have scheduling conflicts on the same day. I'm just telling you what they said. Catherine's hand tightened around her coffee cup. The knuckles went white. This is sabotage. Someone's talking to them. Someone's poisoning the well. Catherine, maybe if we... Get out. But the board meeting... I said get out. Jennifer fled. The door closed with a soft click that somehow sounded like a gunshot. Catherine stood alone in her corner office, 40 floors above Miami Beach. The view that used to make her feel powerful now felt like a reminder of how far she had to fall. $200 million. That's what she needed. That's what stood between Sterling Properties and complete collapse. Her phone buzzed. Text from Peterson, her CFO. Cash position update, 38 days of runway. Board wants answers. 38 days. Just over a month before everything she'd built, everything her father had given her, crumbled to nothing. She walked to the window, pressed her forehead against the cool glass. Sterling Properties had been worth $800 million 3 years ago. Cutting-edge technology, blue-chip clients, magazine covers celebrating Catherine as a visionary. Then the competitors came. The clients left. The board started asking questions she couldn't answer. Now she was worth $400 million on paper and dropping every day. Her phone buzzed again. This time, a text from the conference organizer. Confirmed mystery investor arriving tomorrow. Major fund billions under management. Very interested in real estate tech. Wants to stay anonymous until keynote. Catherine's heart lifted slightly. A mystery investor. Billions under management. This could be it. This could be the lifeline she needed. She typed back, "Who is it?" "He prefers anonymity. But trust me, this is someone you want to meet." "How will I recognize him?" "I honestly don't know. He doesn't do public photos. Keeps a very low profile." Catherine smiled grimly. Fine, she'd find him. She always found what she was looking for. She called Jennifer back in. "The conference tomorrow. I want the best table, the best position, the best everything, and find out who this mystery investor is." "How am I supposed to?" "I don't pay you to ask questions. I pay you to get results." Jennifer's face went carefully blank. "Yes, Ms. Sterling." "And get me another coffee. This one's cold." "You just got that one 5 minutes." Did I stutter? Jennifer turned and left. Her shoulders were hunched, her head down. Catherine didn't notice. She was already back at the window calculating, planning, scheming. The mystery investor would save her. He had to. She just had to find him and make him understand what Sterling Properties could become with the right funding. She just had to make him see her value. The morning of the conference, Marcus woke early in his Miami hotel room. He'd chosen a mid-range Marriott instead of the Four Seasons where the conference was centered. Less chance of being recognized, more chance of observing how people really behaved. His phone showed a photo from Zoe sent by his mother who was watching her. "Made you a good luck picture, Daddy. It's you and me and Mommy watching from heaven." The crayon drawing showed three figures, one tall, one small one, floating on a cloud with angel wings. Hearts surrounded all of them. Marcus saved the image to his favorites folder. Right next to the last photo he had of Maya taken 2 weeks before she died. She'd been so thin by then. The cancer had stolen her body piece by piece. But her eyes, those eyes, still sparkled with life, with love, with the fierce determination that had made her the best person Marcus had ever known. "I'm trying, Maya," he whispered to the empty room. "I'm trying to teach her right. I'm trying to be the man you believed I could be." He showered, dressed simply, black t-shirt, dark jeans, minimal jewelry except his wedding ring, which he still wore, and headed to the conference center. The ballroom was already filling when he arrived. 500 executives in expensive suits, startup founders in designer hoodies, venture capitalists, scanning the room for opportunity. Marcus moved through the crowd quietly. No entourage, no business cards at the ready. Just watching, listening, learning. He spotted Catherine Sterling almost immediately. She stood near the stage surrounded by 5 executives, all laughing at something she'd said. Her voice carried across the room, loud, confident, demanding attention. "The problem with real estate today is everyone thinks they're an expert," she was saying. "They watch a few YouTube videos and suddenly they want to flip houses. It's pathetic, really." Her circle nodded eagerly. One man laughed a little too hard at her joke. Marcus watched how she treated the waiter, who offered her champagne. Didn't look at him. Didn't thank him. Took the glass like she was owed it. He watched how she dismissed her assistant with a wave of her hand. "No, please. No, thank you." Just expectation of compliance. He watched how her eyes scanned the room, looking past anyone who didn't seem important enough to notice. Maya's voice echoed in his memory. "Watch how they treat the people who can do nothing for them. That's who they really are." Marcus took a breath, made a decision. He would approach her directly, give her a chance to surprise him. Everyone deserved that chance. He straightened his shirt and walked toward her circle. Catherine was mid-sentence when she noticed him. Her eyes landed on his t-shirt first, then his jeans, then his face. Her expression shifted curiosity to confusion, to something harder. "Can I help you?" Her tone made it clear she had no intention of helping. "Ms. Sterling?" Marcus extended his hand. "I've been following your company's pivot into residential tech. Impressive strategy." Catherine looked at his hand like he'd offered her a dead fish. She put both hands behind her back. "I'm sorry, and you are?" "Marcus Thompson. I work in investment." "Investment." She repeated the word like it tasted bad. "What kind of investment?" "Real estate primarily. That's why I wanted to introduce myself. Sterling Properties has interesting potential." Catherine's eyes narrowed. She looked him up and down again, slowly, deliberately. "No offense, but this conference has standards." Her voice was ice. "The registration fee alone is $20,000. Not exactly something you'd find on Groupon." Someone in her circle shifted uncomfortably. "I assure you, I'm registered," Marcus said calmly. "Really?" Catherine tilted her head. "And which fund are you with?" "I know everyone in this industry worth knowing." "Thompson Capital Partners." She laughed. "Never heard of it. Must be one of those affirmative action startups. You know, the ones that get government grants for meeting diversity quotas?" The air in the circle went cold. "Actually," one of her executives began. "Richard, please." Catherine held up a hand. "I'm handling this." She stepped closer to Marcus, lowering her voice to a stage whisper. "Look, I'm sure you're very proud of whatever little operation you're running. And I'm sure someone told you that showing up at events like this would help you make connections. But here's the thing about connections. She smiled thinly. They only work when both parties have something to offer. And you don't think I have anything to offer? I think. She paused, looked him over one more time. I think you should find the student mixer. It's probably more your speed. I see. Do you? Her voice hardened. Because I don't think you do. This is my world. These are my people. And I don't have time to educate every diversity hire who wanders in hoping for a mentor. Marcus lowered his hand slowly. I understand completely, Miss Sterling. Good. Then you understand you should leave. I was actually hoping to discuss. I said leave. She turned her back to him. Security really should be more careful about badges, she announced to her circle loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. Honestly, anyone can just walk in off the street these days. Her CFO Peterson grabbed her arm. Catherine, stop. Stop what maintaining standards. This is exactly what's wrong with... Catherine. Peterson's voice was urgent, terrified. That's Marcus Thompson. The Marcus Thompson. He's worth over $1 billion. His fund controls $3.5 billion. Catherine's face froze. He's the mystery investor, Peterson continued. The keynote speaker, the one everyone's been waiting for. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then Catherine spun around. But Marcus was already walking away, unhurried, dignified, gone. Wait. Catherine's voice cracked. Mr. Thompson, there's been a misunderstanding. He didn't turn back. Mr. Thompson. The ballroom had gone completely silent. 500 people watched Catherine Sterling chase after the man she'd just humiliated. Marcus paused at the exit, turned slightly. Good luck with your presentation, Ms. Sterling, he said. I hope you find what you're looking for. Then he walked out, and Catherine Sterling's world began to collapse. Behind her, phones emerged from pockets. Recording lights blinked red. Someone was already typing on Twitter. The first post went live within 60 seconds. Just watched a CEO refuse to shake a black investor's hand and tell him to know his place. Real estate industry showing its true colors. Hat Miami Summit. Racism. Within 5 minutes, 17 retweets. Within 10, 200. Catherine stood frozen in the center of the ballroom, surrounded by her executives, completely unaware that she'd just destroyed herself on camera in front of the entire world. Peterson grabbed her elbow. We need to talk. Now. Not now. I need to find him. I need to explain. Catherine. Peterson's voice was shaking. You're trending on Twitter. What? He held up his phone. Catherine watched herself in high-definition video. Her own voice dripping with contempt. I don't shake hands with people who can't spell real estate investment trust. The view counter climbed as she watched. 10,000, 20,000, 50,000. Her CFO's face was gray. Catherine, what have you done? She couldn't answer. She couldn't breathe. She'd found her mystery investor, and she'd just told him to know his place. Peterson pulled Catherine into a side hallway away from the phones, away from the stairs, away from the disaster she'd just created. What were you thinking? His voice was a harsh whisper. What in God's name were you thinking? I didn't know who he was? Catherine's voice sounded strange to her own ears. Hollow. Distant. How was I supposed to know? That's not a defense, Catherine. That makes it worse. Much worse. I thought he was... You thought he was what? Peterson grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. A nobody. Someone beneath you. Someone you could humiliate in front of 500 people. Catherine couldn't answer. That man controls $3.5 billion. Peterson continued. $3.5 billion. He's funded more successful companies in the last 5 years than everyone in that ballroom combined. And you told him to know his place. I'll apologize. I'll explain that I was under stress, that the company is struggling. You don't get it. Peterson released her, stepped back, ran his hands through his gray hair. This isn't something you can apologize away. This is who you showed him you are. One mistake. One mistake. Peterson laughed bitterly. Catherine, I've watched you treat people like this for 8 years. The only difference is, this time you did it to someone who could fight back. The words hit like a slap. That's not fair. Isn't it? Peterson pulled out his phone, scrolled through Twitter. Look at this. Former employees are already coming forward. People are sharing stories. This isn't a one-time thing to them, it's a pattern. Catherine grabbed the phone. The screen blurred with notifications. I worked at Sterling Properties for 6 months. Catherine Sterling called me surprisingly articulate in my first meeting. I'm a Harvard MBA. Sterling Properties made me straighten my hair for client meetings. Said my natural look was unprofessional. I was paid $40K less than my white colleague. Same role, same experience. When I asked why, they said my communication style wasn't executive material. These are lies, Catherine said. Disgruntled employees. We should sue. Sue who? Peterson's voice cracked. 12 people. 20. The number keeps growing. Catherine scrolled faster. The stories kept coming. Name after name. Detail after detail. This is a coordinated attack. Someone's paying them. Listen to yourself. Peterson grabbed her arm. Just listen to yourself. You're not the victim here, Catherine. You did this. You created this. I built this company from nothing. You inherited it from your father, and you've been destroying it ever since with this. He struggled for words. This poison inside you. Catherine's hand flew up. The slap echoed off the hallway walls. Peterson touched his cheek, eyes wide with shock. Then something shifted in his face. Something final. I quit. Richard. Effective immediately. I'll send my resignation to the board. He straightened his tie. And Catherine, I'm keeping records of everything. Everything. In case the lawsuits start. He walked away. Richard. He didn't turn back. Catherine stood alone in the hallway. Her hand was shaking. Her face was wet. When had she started crying? Her phone buzzed. Text from her husband. We need to talk. Tonight. It's important. She couldn't deal with Thomas right now. Couldn't deal with any of it. She needed to find Marcus Thompson. She needed to fix this. She straightened her dress, wiped her face, and walked back into the ballroom. The crowd parted around her like she was contagious. Meanwhile, Marcus sat in the business center at the back of the hotel. Quiet. Private. He pulled out his phone and called David. I assume you've seen it, David said without greeting. I've lived it. The video's at 2 million views, climbing fast. Every tech outlet is picking it up. Marcus closed his eyes. He could still feel the moment when Catherine had stepped back from his hand, the disgust on her face, the contempt in her voice. He'd experienced racism before, many times, but something about the casual cruelty of it, the performance of it, the way she'd played to her audience like humiliating him, was entertainment that hit different. Cancel the Sterling deal, he said. Marcus, the technology is solid. If we look past the leadership, we don't look past leadership. That's the whole point of what we do. Marcus's voice was firm. Thompson Capital doesn't invest in companies with toxic cultures. Period. $200 million. Isn't worth my soul, David. Isn't worth becoming the kind of person who overlooks this because the numbers work. Silence on the line. Okay, David finally said. I'll kill it. But Marcus, are you all right? Marcus thought about the question, really thought about it. She didn't hurt me, he said slowly. What she did, it says everything about her and nothing about me. I know who I am. I know what I've built. I know what Maya would say. What would Maya say? Marcus smiled slightly. She'd say Catherine Sterling is someone in tremendous pain. People who are whole don't need to tear others down. They don't need to prove their worth by diminishing someone else's. That's incredibly generous. It's not generosity. It's clarity. Hurt people hurt people. That's what Maya always said. He paused. But that doesn't mean I have to fund them while they do it. Understood. The deal's dead. One more thing. Yeah. My keynote tomorrow, I'm still doing it, but I'm changing the topic. To what? Marcus looked across the hotel lobby. Through the glass doors he could see the ballroom entrance. People were streaming out, many of them looking at their phones, probably watching the video of what had happened to him. Character, he said. I'm going to talk about character. Back in the ballroom, Catherine was searching desperately for Marcus. She pushed through the crowd, ignoring the stares, ignoring the whispers. He had to be here somewhere. He had to give her a chance to explain. Have you seen Marcus Thompson? She asked a group of investors. They stepped away from her, didn't answer. Marcus Thompson, the keynote speaker. Where is he? I think he left, one finally said. His voice was cold. Can't imagine why. Catherine moved on. Asked more people. Got more cold shoulders. Her CMO, Jennifer Chen, found her near the bar. Catherine, your 3 o'clock meeting canceled. Reschedule it. They don't want to reschedule. They said they're no longer interested in any relationship with Sterling Properties. That's ridiculous. One misunderstanding. Your 6 o'clock dinner canceled too, and tomorrow's breakfast, and the panel discussion. Jennifer's face was pale. They're all pulling out. Everyone. Everyone can't pull out. We're the biggest real estate tech company in Florida. We're. Jennifer's voice was barely audible. We were the biggest. Catherine's phone rang. Board member. She declined. It rang again. Different board member. Declined. Again. 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 The board wants an emergency meeting, Jennifer said. Tonight. 8 p.m. Mandatory. Tell them I'm busy. Catherine, you can't avoid this. The stock is tanking. We've lost $40 million in valuation in the last 2 hours. Major clients are calling to terminate contracts. That's impossible. Look for yourself. Jennifer handed over her tablet. The numbers were right there. Stock price in freefall. Client cancellations flooding in. Media requests piling up, hundreds of journalists wanting comment on the video. Catherine stared at the screen. The numbers didn't make sense. How could one moment, one conversation, destroy everything? There has to be a way to fix this, she said. We issue a statement. We say I was having a bad day, stress, personal problems. That won't work. We threaten legal action against anyone spreading lies. Catherine, Jennifer's voice was sharp. It's not lies. There's video. Multiple angles. Clear audio. You told a black billionaire to know his place in front of 500 witnesses. I didn't mean it like that. It doesn't matter what you meant. It matters what you did. Jennifer took back her tablet. I'll tell the board you'll be there at 8. She walked away. Catherine stood alone at the bar, surrounded by hundreds of people who all seemed to be looking everywhere except at her. Her phone buzzed. Text from Thomas again. I know you're busy, but we really need to talk. I've made a decision. She couldn't think about Thomas right now. Couldn't think about anything except finding Marcus Thompson and making him understand that this wasn't who she really was. Except, was that true? Peterson's words echoed in her mind. I've watched you treat people like this for 8 years. The former employees on Twitter, dozens of stories, all similar, all damning. Her father's voice from years ago. Success means never apologizing, never showing weakness. People will respect strength. She'd believed him, built her entire identity around that belief. Strength, dominance, control. But standing alone in that ballroom, watching her empire crumble in real time, Catherine wondered for the first time if her father had been wrong. 500 miles away, Marcus's mother, Dorothy, was reading to Zoe when her phone started buzzing. "Grandma, what's that sound?" "Just some messages, baby. Let's finish this chapter." But the buzzing didn't stop. Dorothy set down the book and picked up her phone. 23 notifications. All from friends, all with the same message. "Is that Marcus in this video? Did you see what happened to your son? That woman is disgusting." Dorothy clicked on the link with trembling fingers. The video played. She watched a white woman refuse to shake her son's hand, watched her step backward with disgust, heard her say the words that made Dorothy's blood run cold. "Know your place." 3 words. The same 3 words Dorothy's mother had heard in Mississippi in 1955. The same 3 words that had been used to keep black people down for generations. And now someone had said them to her son, her Marcus. The baby she'd raised alone after his father left. The boy who'd worked 3 jobs to pay for MIT. The man who'd built an empire while never forgetting where he came from. "Grandma?" Zoe's small voice cut through Dorothy's anger. "What's wrong?" Dorothy forced a smile. "Nothing, baby. Just some silly grown-up stuff." "Is Daddy okay?" "Your daddy is fine. He's the strongest man I know." "Stronger than Mr. Wrinkles." Zoe held up her stuffed elephant. "Even stronger than Mr. Wrinkles." Zoe giggled, satisfied. "Okay, can we finish the story?" "Of course, baby." But as Dorothy read about brave knights and dragons, her mind was in Miami, with her son. Wondering if he was really okay, or if he was just pretending to be okay, the way he'd pretended for months after Maya died. She'd call him later, after Zoe went to sleep. She'd call him and remind him of what she'd told him his whole life. Their hate says nothing about you and everything about them. In Miami, the sun had set. The conference center had emptied. Catherine sat in her car in the parking garage, unable to drive, unable to think, unable to stop scrolling through the destruction unfolding online. The video was at 8 million views now. 8 million people had watched her refuse to shake Marcus Thompson's hand. 8 million people had heard her tell a black man to know his place. The comments were brutal. "This is what racism looks like when it wears designer clothes." She really said diversity theater at a professional conference in 2024. The way he stayed calm while she humiliated him. That composure. That dignity. That man is a class act. And she runs a major company. How many people has she done this to? That question was being answered in real time. Former employees kept coming forward. The stories kept getting worse. Catherine remembered some of them now. The black marketing manager she'd told to tone down her personality. The Asian engineer she'd passed over for promotion because technical skills don't translate to leadership. The Latino developer whose name she'd never bothered to learn. Had she been cruel? Or just demanding? Had she been racist? Or just standards-driven? The distinction that had always seemed so clear now blurred into nothing. Her phone rang. Thomas. She answered this time. "I can't talk right now. I'm dealing with—" "I know what you're dealing with. I've seen the video." Something in his voice made her pause. Thomas. "I filed for divorce, Catherine. The papers will be served tomorrow." "What?" "My firm called. They're concerned about association. My partners think we should put distance between us while you handle this situation." "Distance? We've been married for 12 years. And in 12 years, you've never once asked about my day, never remembered my mother's birthday, never came to a single one of my work events, unless there was something in it for you." His voice was tired, defeated. "I've watched you treat everyone around you like they're beneath you. I just never thought I'd see it captured on video for the whole world to witness." "Thomas, please, I'm your wife." "You were my wife. Now you're a liability." He paused. "The divorce will be quiet, uncontested. You can keep the house in Aspen. I just want out." You're leaving me because of one video. I'm leaving you because that video showed me who you really are, and I can't pretend anymore." His voice cracked slightly. "Goodbye, Catherine." The line went dead. Catherine sat in her car phone pressed against her ear, listening to silence. Husband gone. CFO gone. Investors gone. Company crumbling. All because she'd refused to shake one man's hand. At 8 p.m. she walked into the emergency board meeting. 7 faces on video screens, all stone cold. "Catherine." The board chair's voice was ice. "We need to discuss your future at this company." "My future? I built this company?" "You inherited this company, and you've spent 8 years driving it into the ground." The chair leaned forward. "We were willing to overlook a lot of things. The high turnover, the complaints, the lawsuits that were quietly settled. But this..." He held up his phone. "This is something we can't overlook. It's being taken out of context. 12 million views, Catherine. 12 million people watching you tell a black man he doesn't belong at a professional conference. There's no context that makes that acceptable." "I didn't know who he was?" "That's exactly the problem." Another board member jumped in. "You treated him that way because you thought he was nobody. You thought he couldn't fight back. That's not a defense, it's a confession." Catherine's mouth opened, closed. She had no response. "The EEOC is launching an investigation," the chair continued. "Former employees are filing formal complaints. 3 major clients have already terminated contracts, and 4 more are reviewing their relationship with us. Our stock is down 23% since this morning. It will recover." "It won't." The chair's voice was final. "Not with you at the helm. Your name is toxic now. No investor will touch us. No client wants their brand associated with us. No talented employee will want to work here. So what do you want me to do?" "Resign. Tonight. Effective immediately. We'll issue a joint statement about a mutual decision to part ways. You'll retain your vested equity, approximately $14 million. You'll sign a non-disclosure agreement and walk away quietly. And if I don't, we terminate you for cause. Morality clause violation. You lose all unvested equity and bonuses. You leave with roughly $3 million. The chair paused. "And we release a statement making clear exactly why you were fired." Catherine looked around the screens. 7 faces. Not one showed sympathy. "You can't do this. I'm the majority shareholder." "You're a 23% shareholder, Catherine. The board controls the company." The chair folded his hands. "You have until 9 a.m. tomorrow to decide. We strongly recommend resignation. It's better for everyone. Including you." "Including you." He leaned forward. "Catherine, I've known you for 15 years. I knew your father. I've watched you build on his legacy and then slowly destroy it. This isn't how any of us wanted things to end, but you've given us no choice." The screen went black. Catherine sat alone in the conference room. $14 million or $3 million. Those were her options. A week ago, she'd been worth $42 million. Now she might walk away with 3, all because she'd refused to shake one man's hand. Her phone buzzed. Text from her assistant, Jennifer. "Your meeting with the PR crisis team is canceled. They said they can't help." Direct quote. "There's no way to spin this. She needs to face the consequences." Catherine threw her phone across the room. It shattered against the wall. Consequences. Everyone kept talking about consequences, like she was a child who needed to learn a lesson. She was Catherine Sterling. She'd been on the cover of Forbes. She'd been called a visionary. She'd been invited to speak at conferences around the world about leadership and innovation. And now she was nothing. Because of one moment, one decision, one refusal. She thought about Marcus Thompson. The calm look on his face as she'd humiliated him. The dignity in his voice as he'd said, "Good luck with your presentation." He'd known. Even then, he'd known how this would end. and he'd still wished her luck. Why? In his hotel room, Marcus was FaceTiming with Zoe before her bedtime. "Daddy, Grandma showed me a video today, but she turned it off really fast." Zoe's face was curious. "What happened in Miami?" Marcus considered his answer carefully. "I met someone who wasn't very nice, baby. She hurt my feelings." "What did she do?" "She didn't want to shake my hand, and she said some mean things." Zoe's face scrunched up. "Why didn't she want to shake your hand?" "You have nice hands." Marcus laughed softly. "Thank you, sweetheart. I think she was scared." "Scared of what?" "That's a good question." Marcus paused. Sometimes people are scared of things that are different from them. Sometimes they're scared because they feel bad about themselves and they think being mean will make them feel better. Did it make her feel better? No, I don't think it did. Zoe thought about this. Mommy said hurting people doesn't fix hurt. It just makes more hurt. Marcus's throat tightened. Maya's wisdom living on through their daughter. Your mommy was very smart. She was the smartest. Zoe yawned. Daddy, are you going to be mean back to the lady? No, baby, I'm not. Why not? Because being mean back wouldn't fix anything. It would just make more hurt, like Mommy said. He smiled at her through the screen. And besides, I'd rather spend my energy on people who deserve it. Like you. Zoe giggled. I deserve lots of energy. You deserve all of it. He kissed his finger and pressed it to the screen. I love you, baby girl, more than all the stars. More than all the stars and the moon and the sun. More than everything in the whole universe. I love you too, Daddy. She yawned again. Come home soon. Friday night. I promise. Dorothy's face appeared on screen as she picked up Zoe. Say goodnight to your father. Good night, Daddy. Don't let the mean lady win. The screen went dark. Marcus sat in silence, his daughter's words echoing in his mind. Don't let the mean lady win. He wouldn't. But not by fighting her. Not by destroying her. She was already doing that to herself. He would win by being exactly who Maya had always believed he could be. By building something meaningful. By lifting up the people others overlooked. Tomorrow he would give his keynote. He would talk about character and dignity and what it really meant to be successful. And Catherine Sterling would have to watch. In her empty office, Catherine stared at the shattered remains of her phone. The video was at 15 million views now, climbing toward 20. Tomorrow Marcus Thompson would take the stage. The whole world would watch. And she would have to decide resign quietly with 14 million or fight and lose everything. Her father's voice echoed in her mind. Never apologize. Never show weakness. But her father had never been filmed refusing to shake a black man's hand. Her father had never been called a racist by millions of people. Her father had never watched everything he built crumble in real time. Maybe her father had been wrong about everything. Or maybe he'd just never gotten caught. Catherine pulled her backup phone from her desk drawer. She had one chance. One desperate final chance. She would go to Marcus Thompson's keynote tomorrow. She would find him afterward. She would beg if she had to. Not for the investment. That was gone. For forgiveness. For understanding. For some way to salvage what was left of her life. She didn't know yet that it was far too late for any of that. She didn't know that Marcus had already moved on. She didn't know that the worst was still coming. All she knew was that she'd refused to shake a black man's hand, and now the whole world was watching her fall. Catherine arrived at the conference center at 7 a.m., 2 hours before Marcus's keynote was scheduled to begin. She hadn't slept. Hadn't eaten. Hadn't done anything except stare at the ceiling and watch the view count on that video climb past 25 million. 25 million people had watched her refuse to shake a black man's hand. 25 million people had heard her say, "Know your place." 25 million people had decided she was a monster. Maybe they were right. She found a seat in the back corner of the ballroom, pulled her baseball cap low, kept her sunglasses on. If anyone recognized her, they didn't approach. The few people who glanced her way quickly looked elsewhere. Toxic. That's what the board chair had called her. Toxic. One word that erased 8 years of work. One word that made her untouchable. The ballroom filled slowly, then quickly, then overflowed. People lined the walls. Camera crews from TechCrunch, Bloomberg, CNBC set up in the aisles. Everyone wanted to see Marcus Thompson. Everyone wanted to hear what he would say. About her. About what she'd done. At 8:45, the conference organizer took the stage. The crowd fell silent instantly. Good morning, everyone. Before we begin today's keynote, I want to acknowledge what happened yesterday at this conference. Catherine's stomach clenched. This summit is meant to be a place where professionals can connect regardless of their background. What occurred yesterday was unacceptable and does not represent our values. We're committed to ensuring every attendee feels welcome and respected. Scattered applause. A few heads turned toward Catherine's corner. She sank lower in her seat. Now it's my honor to introduce our keynote speaker. He's revolutionized venture capital with his focus on ethical investing and diverse leadership. His fund has invested $3.5 billion in transformative companies. He's been on the Forbes Midas list for 4 consecutive years. His portfolio includes some of the most successful real estate technology companies in the world. The screen behind her lit up with logos. Companies Catherine recognized. Companies she'd pitched to. Companies that had rejected her. Please welcome the founder of Thompson Capital Partners, Marcus Thompson. The applause was thunderous. Standing ovation before he even spoke. 2,000 people on their feet. Marcus walked onto the stage in the same black t-shirt, the same dark jeans. No suit. No pretense. Just quiet confidence that filled the room. Catherine couldn't breathe. This was the man she'd told to know his place. This was the man whose hand she'd refused to shake. This was the man who could have saved her company with a single check, and she'd called him a diversity hire. Marcus waited for the applause to die down, smiled slightly, let the silence settle. Thank you, he said. I want to talk today about something that's been on my mind, something that happened to me recently, something I think we all need to hear. Catherine's hands gripped her knees so hard her knuckles went white. Yesterday, I was reminded of a fundamental truth. A truth my late wife Maya taught me years ago. His voice softened when he said her name. She used to say that character isn't what you show to people who can help you. Character is what you show to people you think can't do anything for you at all. The audience was completely still. I dressed simply for this conference. No designer labels. No obvious signals of wealth. I wanted to see how people would treat someone they thought was nobody. He paused. I learned a lot. Someone in the crowd coughed. The sound was startling in the silence. I learned that most people here are genuine, kind, welcoming. They shook my hand, asked about my background, treated me with respect, even when they didn't know who I was. Catherine felt a flicker of hope. Maybe he wouldn't mention her directly. Maybe he would take the high road. But I also learned that some people only see value in others when they know what they can get from them. Some people look at someone's appearance and make instant judgments about their worth, their intelligence, their right to be in the room. The hope died. I was told yesterday to know my place. Marcus's voice remained calm, even, almost gentle. I was asked if I could spell basic industry terms. I was called a diversity hire. My hand was refused because the person assumed I had nothing to offer. 2,000 heads turned toward the back corner, toward Catherine. She wanted to disappear, wanted the floor to open up and swallow her whole. But there was nowhere to hide. I'm not sharing this to shame anyone, Marcus continued. I'm sharing it because it happens every day. To people who look like me. To people who don't fit someone's image of what success should look like. It happens in boardrooms and conference halls and elevators, and mostly it happens in silence. Because the people it happens to have learned, there's no point in speaking up. He paused. Let the words settle. But here's what I want you to understand. That moment yesterday, it didn't diminish me. It revealed something about the person who did it, about their fears, their insecurities, their need to feel superior by making someone else feel small. Catherine's eyes burned. She blinked rapidly. My daughter asked me last night why some people are mean. Marcus smiled slightly. I told her what Maya always said, hurt people. But healed people, they build. They lift others up. They create spaces where everyone belongs. The audience was transfixed. Thompson Capital was built on a simple principle: invest in character, not just numbers. Look for leaders who treat the janitor the same way they treat the CEO. Because how someone treats people they think don't matter tells you everything about who they really are. He clicked to a new slide. Numbers, statistics, success stories. In the past 5 years, we've invested in 43 companies led by people others overlooked. Founders who didn't fit the traditional mold. Women, people of color, immigrants, people from poverty who built themselves up with nothing but talent and determination. The logos appeared on screen. Household names, billion-dollar valuations. Combined, these companies are worth $12 billion. They employ 23,000 people. They've changed industries and improved millions of lives. And almost every single one of those founders has a story just like mine. A story about being dismissed, being underestimated, being told they didn't belong. He paused again. But they proved everyone wrong. Not through anger, not through revenge. Through excellence. Through refusing to let other people's limitations define their potential. The applause started spontaneously, grew, swelled into something overwhelming. Marcus waited for it to subside. I came to this conference looking for a company to invest in. A real estate technology company that could transform the industry. He glanced toward Catherine's corner. I found what I was looking for, but not where I expected. Catherine's heart stopped. This morning, Thompson Capital is announcing a $200 million investment in Horizon Real Estate Technologies. Gasps rippled through the audience. Horizon was founded 3 years ago by Jasmine Williams, a black woman who left a toxic workplace to build something better. Her platform does everything Sterling Properties technology does, but more efficiently, more ethically, and with a team that looks like America. The screen changed. A young black woman appeared, smiling confidently. Jasmine will be joining me on stage in a moment. But first, I want to say something directly to anyone who's ever been made to feel less than. Anyone who's been told to know their place. Anyone who's been dismissed before they could prove their worth. His voice dropped. Intimate. Personal. Your worth isn't determined by their bias. It's proven by your character, your work, your refusal to shrink. They will underestimate you. Let them. Then show them what underestimated looks like when it has a billion-dollar exit. The standing ovation lasted 3 full minutes. Catherine sat frozen in her seat. $200 million. He'd given $200 million to her competitor. A competitor she'd never even heard of. A competitor founded by someone named Jasmine Williams. The name echoed in her mind. Jasmine Williams. Why did that sound familiar? Then she remembered. 3 years ago, a young black woman in her marketing department. Confident, talented, ambitious. Catherine had called her too aggressive in a performance review. Had told her to tone down her personality for client meetings. Had passed her over for promotion because she wasn't a cultural fit. Jasmine had resigned a week later. Catherine hadn't given it a second thought. Now Jasmine was about to receive $200 million from the man Catherine had humiliated. The universe had a cruel sense of humor. Marcus was bringing Jasmine onto the stage. The audience rose again, applauding wildly. Jasmine walked with the confidence of someone who'd fought for everything she had and won. Thank you, Marcus. Jasmine's voice was clear and strong. And thank you to everyone who told me I wasn't good enough, wasn't polished enough, wasn't the right fit. You taught me that I needed to build my own table instead of begging for a seat at yours. The crowd roared. 3 years ago, I worked at a company that made me feel invisible. My ideas were stolen. My contributions were ignored. I was paid less than colleagues with half my qualifications, and when I finally spoke up, I was shown the door. Catherine's blood ran cold. Jasmine was looking directly at her. I won't name that company. I don't need to. They're already facing consequences for how they treated me and others like me. But I will say this, the best revenge is living well. And today, with this investment, I'm living very, very well, Barry. The applause was deafening. Horizon Real Estate Technologies is committed to being everything my former employer wasn't. Diverse, inclusive, ethical. A place where talent matters more than background. Where character matters more than connections. Where everyone has a fair shot at success. She smiled. And to anyone watching who's ever been made to feel small, your time is coming. Keep working. Keep building. Keep believing. The right people will find you. Marcus and Jasmine shook hands warmly. Cameras flashed. The image would be on every tech blog by noon. Catherine stood abruptly. She needed air. Needed to get out of this room. Needed to think. But as she pushed toward the exit, bodies blocked her path. Not accidentally, deliberately. A woman stepped in front of her, middle-aged, professional, eyes hard with contempt. Catherine Sterling. Excuse me. My daughter worked at your company for 18 months. You made her life hell. Called her exotic in meetings. Asked if she could translate documents because she looked Asian. I don't know what you're talking about. She's Korean American, 3rd generation. She was born in Ohio. The woman's voice shook with anger. She had to go to therapy after leaving your company. Therapy. Because of how you treated her. I need to go. No, you need to listen. The woman grabbed Catherine's arm. You destroyed my daughter's confidence. Made her question everything about herself. And you probably don't even remember her name. Catherine tried to pull away. Let go of me. Her name is Michelle Park. Say it. I don't. Say her name. Security appeared. 2 large men in suits gently but firmly separating the women. Ma'am, we need you to step back. She's a monster, the woman shouted as she was led away. She destroyed my daughter. She destroys everyone. The crowd parted around Catherine. No one came to her defense. No one offered comfort. They just watched phones out recording another humiliation. Catherine fled. She made it to the hallway outside the ballroom before her legs gave out. She slumped against the wall, breathing hard, fighting the panic rising in her chest. Everything was falling apart. Everything she'd built. Everything she'd believed about herself. Ms. Sterling. She looked up. The conference organizer stood a few feet away, face carefully neutral. What? Mr. Thompson has agreed to a brief meeting with you, 5 minutes, in the green room. Catherine's heart lurched. He wants to meet with me. He said he has something to say to you. The organizer paused. I'd advise against it personally, but it's your choice. Catherine struggled to her feet. Take me to him. The green room was small and plain. Marcus sat in a folding chair scrolling through his phone. He looked up when Catherine entered. Ms. Sterling. His voice was polite. Nothing more. Mr. Thompson, thank you for agreeing to see me. I didn't agree to see you. I asked to see you. He gestured to the chair across from him. Please, sit. She sat. Her legs were shaking. I wanted to tell you something, Marcus said. Something I should have said yesterday. I'm so sorry. He held up a hand. Please, let me finish. Catherine fell silent. Yesterday, when you refused to shake my hand, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. I felt invisible. I felt like nothing I'd accomplished mattered because of the color of my skin. I didn't mean... You meant exactly what you showed. His voice was calm but firm. "You saw a black man in casual clothes, and you decided I was beneath you. You decided I had no right to be in your space. You decided I was someone you could humiliate without consequence. I made a mistake. You made a choice that revealed who you really are when you think no one important is watching." He leaned forward. "But here's what I wanted to tell you, Ms. Sterling. What you did to me, it didn't hurt me. Not really. I know who I am. I know what I've built. I know what my wife believed I could become." Catherine's eyes dropped to the wedding ring still on his finger. "What hurt me was realizing how many people you've done this to who couldn't fight back. How many employees you've diminished. How many careers you've derailed. How many people walked away from your company feeling the way you tried to make me feel. I never intended. Intent doesn't matter when the impact is destruction." Marcus stood. "I'm not going to invest in your company. That decision was made yesterday and it's final. But I wanted you to know why. Because of what I said. Because of who you are. And who you are isn't someone Thompson Capital does business with." He picked up his phone, slipped it into his pocket. "My daughter asked me last night if I was going to be mean back to you. I told her no. Because being mean doesn't fix anything. It just creates more hurt." Catherine's eyes burned. "What am I supposed to do now?" "I don't know." Marcus's voice was almost gentle. "But I'd suggest starting with an honest look in the mirror. Not at your career, or your company, or your reputation. At yourself. At the person you've become. At whether that's the person you want to be. I built everything. You inherited everything." The gentleness faded. "Your father gave you a company connections opportunities that most people could never dream of. And you used all of that to make others feel small, to gatekeep success, to decide who deserved a chance and who didn't, based on nothing but your own prejudice." Catherine had no response. "I grew up in poverty on the south side of Chicago." Marcus moved toward the door. "My mother worked 3 jobs to keep us fed. I earned everything I have through work and sacrifice, and refusing to let people like you define my limits. You've never had to fight for anything in your life, and it shows." "Mr. Thompson." "This conversation is over, Ms. Sterling." He paused at the door. "I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for. I hope you become someone better. But that's your journey, not mine. I have somewhere more important to be." "Where?" "Home." For the first time he smiled. "My daughter has a recital tomorrow. I promised I'd be there." He walked out. Catherine sat alone in the green room surrounded by silence. Her phone buzzed. Text from the board chair. "Your time is up." "What's your decision?" She stared at the screen. $14 million to resign quietly. $3 million to fight and lose. Either way, she'd lost everything that actually mattered. Her father's voice echoed in her mind, "Never apologize. Never show weakness." But her father was dead. Had been dead for 10 years. And his advice had brought her here to this moment alone in a folding chair while the world watched her empire burn. She typed her response with trembling fingers. "I'll resign. Send the papers." The reply came immediately. "Wise choice. Press conference at noon. We'll announce the transition together." Catherine set down her phone, pressed her palms against her eyes. 52 years old, divorced, disgraced, destroyed. All because she'd refused to shake one man's hand. Outside, she could hear the conference continuing. Applause, laughter, the sounds of an industry moving on without her. Marcus Thompson was probably at the airport by now, heading home to his daughter, leaving the wreckage of Catherine's life in his rearview mirror. He'd told her to look in the mirror, to see who she'd become. She didn't want to look. She was terrified of what she might find. But sitting in that empty room with nothing left to lose, Catherine realized she had no choice. The woman she'd been for 52 years had destroyed everything. Maybe it was time to become someone else, or maybe it was already too late. Her phone buzzed again. News alert. Breaking Sterling Properties. CEO to resign amid racism scandal. Federal investigation pending. Catherine stared at the headline. The investigation part was new. The board hadn't mentioned anything about a federal investigation. She opened the article with shaking hands. The EEOC has announced a formal investigation into Sterling Properties' hiring practices, following allegations of systematic discrimination. Former employees have filed complaints citing racial bias in hiring, promotion, and compensation decisions spanning 8 years. This investigation will be thorough and comprehensive, an EEOC spokesperson stated. The allegations are serious and warrant a full examination of the company's policies and leadership decisions. Multiple sources indicate that criminal referrals may be forthcoming depending on the investigation's findings. Criminal referrals. Catherine's blood went cold. This wasn't just about losing her company anymore. This was about losing her freedom. She stood on legs that barely held her, walked out of the green room, pushed through the conference center crowds, made it to her car. Then she sat in the parking garage and screamed. She screamed until her throat was raw, until she had nothing left, until the only sound was her own ragged breathing echoing off the concrete walls. When she finally stopped, she looked at herself in the rearview mirror. Red eyes, tear-streaked face, mascara running. This was who she was now. This was what she'd become. And somewhere a man in a plain black t-shirt was flying home to Chicago to watch his daughter's recital. Moving on with his life. Building something meaningful. While Catherine's life burned to the ground, she pulled out of the parking garage and drove toward nowhere in particular. The investigation was just beginning. The trial hadn't even started yet. But Catherine already knew how this story would end. She'd seen it in Marcus Thompson's eyes when he'd walked away. Not anger, not hatred, pity. And somehow, that was worse than anything else. 6 months passed like a slow-motion car crash. Catherine watched it all happen from the sidelines, powerless to stop any of it. The investigation, the depositions, the endless parade of former employees sharing their stories on national television. 23 people eventually came forward. 23 individual lawsuits that merged into one devastating class action. 23 stories that all sounded eerily similar. She made me feel invisible. She questioned my intelligence. She called me aggressive for speaking up. She asked where I was really from. She told me to tone down my personality. She said I wasn't a cultural fit. Catherine heard her own words played back to her in deposition after deposition. Words she barely remembered saying. Words that had seemed normal at the time. Words that now sounded like confessions. Her attorney, a silver-haired woman named Patricia Morrison, had been blunt from the start. This is bad, Catherine. Very bad. How bad? Federal civil rights violations. Corporate discrimination. Potential perjury if any of your deposition answers contradict the evidence. Patricia had spread the documents across her conference table. They have emails, performance reviews, compensation records, everything. I was just maintaining standards. You were discriminating, systematically, for 8 years. Patricia's voice had been cold. The statistics alone are damning. People of color represented 42% of qualified applicants to Sterling Properties. Only 4% were hired. Of those hired, none were promoted to management. None. That's coincidence. That's a pattern. And patterns have consequences. The consequences had come faster than Catherine could process. Her bank accounts were frozen pending the investigation. Her house in Aspen seized as potential asset forfeiture. Her country club membership quietly revoked. Her so-called friends stopped returning calls. Thomas had been efficient about the divorce. Clean. Quick. He'd taken what he wanted and disappeared from her life completely. She'd received papers in the mail, signed them without reading. What was the point? Now she sat in a federal courtroom surrounded by attorneys and cameras and the 23 people whose lives she'd apparently destroyed. The trial had lasted 3 weeks. 3 weeks of testimony that made Catherine want to crawl out of her own skin. Jasmine Williams had testified on day 2. Calm, composed, devastating. Can you describe your experience at Sterling Properties? I was hired as a marketing coordinator. My first week, Ms. Sterling called me into her office. She told me I was surprisingly articulate for someone from my background. What background did she mean? I asked her that same question. She said she meant public university graduates. But the way she looked at me, Jasmine had paused. I knew what she really meant. What happened next? Over the next 8 months, I was passed over for promotion 3 times. Each time, the position went to a white colleague with less experience. When I asked Ms. Sterling directly why, she said I wasn't a cultural fit. She said my communication style was too aggressive. Were you aggressive? I asked questions in meetings. I challenged ideas I thought were flawed. I advocated for my team. Jasmine had looked directly at Catherine. Apparently, that's aggressive when you're black. The jury had taken notes. Several had glanced at Catherine with something that looked like disgust. Michael Chen had testified on day 5, former senior engineer, Asian American, passed over for promotion 6 times despite perfect performance reviews. Ms. Sterling told me directly that Asians are good at executing, but not at leading. She said it in front of my entire team. How did that make you feel? Like nothing I accomplished would ever be enough. Like my ceiling had been decided before I even started. His voice had cracked slightly. I have a PhD from Stanford. I've published 47 papers. I hold 12 patents. And she told me I couldn't lead because of my race. Carlos Rivera had testified on day 7, Latino developer. Paid $38,000 less than his white colleague for identical work. When I found out about the pay gap, I went to HR. They said compensation was based on market rates and negotiation outcomes. I asked what I could do to close the gap. They said I should focus on my work and trust the process. Did the gap ever close? No, I left 6 months later. Found out the white colleague I mentioned, he got promoted the week after I resigned, the position I'd applied for 3 times. Story after story, day after day. A portrait of systematic discrimination painted in excruciating detail. Catherine's defense attorney had tried his best. Argued stress. Argued misunderstanding. Argued that standards and cultural fit were legitimate business considerations. The jury hadn't bought it. Now the verdict was coming. Catherine sat rigid in her chair, hands folded on the table, trying to project a calm she didn't feel. The jury filed in. 12 faces. Not one of them would look at her. Has the jury reached a verdict? We have, Your Honor. The foreperson stood. Middle-aged black woman. Eyes hard with conviction. On the count of federal civil rights violations, we find the defendant guilty. Catherine's attorney gripped her arm. The courtroom erupted in whispers. On the count of corporate discrimination, we find the defendant guilty. The whispers grew louder. On the count of fraud, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of perjury, we find the defendant guilty. 4 counts. 4 guilty verdicts. Catherine felt the room spinning around her. The judge banged his gavel. Order. We'll proceed to sentencing in 2 weeks. The defendant will remain free on bail pending sentencing, but her passport is to be surrendered immediately. Catherine stood on legs that felt like water. Her attorney guided her toward the side exit, away from the cameras, away from the crowd of plaintiffs celebrating their victory. Jasmine Williams caught her eye across the courtroom. For a moment, their gazes locked. Catherine expected triumph, expected gloating, expected the kind of cruel satisfaction she herself would have shown in Jasmine's position. Instead, she saw something that looked almost like pity. That was somehow worse. 2 weeks later, Catherine stood before Judge Harrison for sentencing. The courtroom was packed. Media, former employees, curious spectators who wanted to witness the downfall of a woman they'd decided was a monster. Marcus Thompson was not present. He'd given his testimony early in the trial, answered questions with the same quiet dignity he'd shown from the beginning, and returned to Chicago to be with his daughter. He'd moved on. Catherine was still trapped in the wreckage. "Ms. Sterling," Judge Harrison's voice was grave. "Do you have anything to say before I pronounce sentence?" Catherine's attorney had prepared a statement. Remorse, rehabilitation, request for leniency. She set it aside. "Your Honor, I spent my whole life believing that success meant never apologizing, never showing weakness. My father taught me that. I built my identity around it." Her voice shook, but she kept going. "I thought I was maintaining standards. I thought I was being strong. I didn't see what I was really doing until it was too late." The courtroom was silent. Courtroom was. "I destroyed careers. I diminished people. I made decisions based on prejudice I didn't even recognize as prejudice because it was so deeply embedded in who I was." She paused. "I'm not asking for sympathy. I don't deserve it. I'm just asking you to understand that I'm not the same person I was 6 months ago. That person is gone. I don't know who I am now, but I'm trying to find out." Judge Harrison studied her for a long moment. "Ms. Sterling, I've presided over many discrimination cases. I've heard many apologies. Most of them ring hollow. Defendants sorry they got caught. Sorry for the consequences. Not sorry for what they actually did." Catherine held her breath. "I believe you may be different. I believe the last 6 months have forced you to confront truths about yourself that you'd spent a lifetime avoiding. But belief doesn't change the facts of this case. 23 people came before this court and described a pattern of cruelty that spanned nearly a decade. 23 people had their careers damaged, their confidence shattered, their faith in justice tested." He leaned forward. "You had every advantage. Wealth, education, opportunity. You used those advantages to gatekeep success based on race. You decided who belonged and who didn't, based on nothing but prejudice. And you did it while believing yourself to be a good person. That may be the most troubling part of all." Catherine felt tears sliding down her face. She didn't wipe them away. "For the crime of federal civil rights violations, I sentence you to 18 months in federal prison. For corporate discrimination, an additional 12 months to run concurrently. For fraud and perjury, 6 months each, also concurrent." 18 months. The number echoed in Catherine's mind. "Additionally, you are fined $300,000. You will complete 500 hours of community service upon release, specifically teaching diversity and inclusion awareness. You are permanently banned from serving as a corporate officer at any publicly traded company." The gavel fell. "Finally, the court finds that due to the personal and egregious nature of your conduct, you are individually liable for damages in the amount of $8.6 million payable to the plaintiffs in this case." $8.6 million. Added to the legal fees, the fines, the divorce settlement. Catherine would be left with almost nothing. Court is adjourned. Officers approached. Catherine's attorney squeezed her shoulder. "Will appeal." "No." Catherine's voice was quiet. "I deserve this." She held out her wrists for the handcuffs. The trial had been national news. The sentencing made it international. In Chicago, Marcus watched the coverage with his mother while Zoe did homework at the kitchen table. "Daddy, what's prison?" Marcus muted the television. "It's a place where people go when they've done something wrong. It's supposed to help them learn to do better." "Is that where the mean lady is going?" "Yes, baby." Zoe thought about this. "Will she learn to be nice?" "I don't know, sweetheart. I hope so." Dorothy shook her head. "That woman destroyed lives for years. 18 months isn't enough." "Maybe not." Marcus's voice was thoughtful. "But it's not about what's enough for us. It's about what's right for society, and for her to have any chance of becoming better." "You're too forgiving." "Maya would say there's no such thing." He smiled sadly. "She'd say hurt people, but everyone deserves the chance to heal." "Your wife was a saint. She was human. Just a human who chose compassion even when it was hard." Marcus looked at the television at the footage of Catherine being led away in handcuffs. I feel sorry for her, honestly. Sorry. Dorothy's voice was sharp. After what she did to you. What she did to all those people. She's 52 years old, and she just lost everything. Her company, her marriage, her freedom, her entire identity. Marcus shook his head. That's not victory. That's tragedy. The real victory is what happens next. What do you mean? Jasmine Williams is building an empire. Michael Chen just got promoted to VP at Google. Carlos Rivera's scholarship fund has helped 25 students so far. The people she tried to tear down are thriving. He smiled. That's the victory, not her punishment. Their success. Zoe looked up from her homework. Daddy, if someone is mean to you, are you supposed to be mean back? What do you think, baby? Zoe considered the question seriously. I think being mean back just makes two mean people instead of one. Mommy said we should be so happy and good that mean people feel silly for being mean. Marcus felt his heart swell. Your mommy was very wise. Is the mean lady going to feel silly? Maybe. Eventually. Or maybe she'll just feel sad for a very long time. He knelt beside his daughter. The important thing is that we don't let her meanness change who we are. We keep being kind, we keep building, we keep loving. Even people who are mean to us. Especially them, because they're the ones who need it most. Zoe hugged him tightly. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, baby girl. More than all the stars. In a federal processing center 2,000 miles away, Catherine surrendered her jewelry, her clothes, her last remaining dignity. They gave her an orange jumpsuit. A number. A cell. The first night was the longest of her life. Lying on a thin mattress, staring at a concrete ceiling, listening to the sounds of other women crying. She thought about Marcus Thompson's words in the green room. Look in the mirror. See who you've become. She didn't need a mirror anymore. The verdict had shown her exactly who she was. The days blurred together. Wake up, eat, work, sleep, repeat. Catherine was assigned to the prison library, sorting books, helping with educational programs. It was the closest thing to meaningful work she'd done in years. 3 months in a letter arrived. No return address, just her name and the prison facility. She opened it with trembling hands. Ms. Sterling. I debated whether to write this. My therapist said it might help with closure. My mother said I should let you rot. I decided to listen to my therapist. I'm not writing to gloat. I'm writing because I need you to understand something. When I worked at Sterling Properties, I was 24 years old. I was hungry and ambitious and desperate to prove myself. I thought if I worked hard enough, I could overcome any obstacle. I didn't understand yet that some obstacles aren't about work. They're about who you are, who you were born as. You taught me that lesson. Every dismissive comment, every passed-over promotion, every time you looked through me like I wasn't there. You taught me that some people would never see me as an equal no matter what I accomplished. For a long time I hated you for that. I hated you so much it kept me awake at night. I fantasized about your downfall. I imagined watching you lose everything. Then it actually happened. And you know what I felt? Nothing. Not satisfaction, not triumph. Just emptiness. Because your suffering doesn't heal what you did to me. It doesn't give me back the confidence you stole. It doesn't undo the years I spent doubting myself because someone in power told me I wasn't good enough. I had to rebuild that myself, piece by piece, day by day. And I did it. Not because of you, despite you. Horizon Real Estate Technologies is doing well. Better than well. We're changing an industry. We're proving that diverse teams aren't just ethical, they're stronger. We're building something you never could have built because you were too blinded by your own prejudice to see talent when it didn't look like you. I don't forgive you. I'm not sure I ever will. But I've let go of the hate. It was poisoning me more than it was hurting you. Marcus Thompson told me something once. He said excellence is the best response to prejudice. He said our success speaks louder than their failures. He was right. So this is my closure. This is me telling you that you didn't break me. You tried. You failed. And now I'm thriving while you sit in a cell. I hope you use this time to become someone better. Not for my sake, for yours. Because living with the person you've been must be exhausting. Jasmine Williams, CEO, Horizon Real Estate Technologies. Catherine read the letter 3 times. Then she folded it carefully and placed it under her pillow. That night, for the first time since she'd arrived, she cried. Not from self-pity, not from fear, from recognition. She'd spent her entire life building walls, protecting herself, making sure no one could ever make her feel small. And in doing so, she'd made countless others feel exactly that way. The irony was devastating. The next morning, she requested a meeting with the prison counselor. I need to make amends, she said. Real amends. Not just apologies. I need to do something. What did you have in mind? I don't know yet, but I need to start somewhere. The counselor studied her. Most people who come through here never have that conversation. They serve their time and leave as angry and bitter as they arrived. I don't want to be most people anymore. What changed? Catherine thought about the question. About Jasmine's letter. About Marcus's words in the green room. About Zoe's innocent question on the FaceTime call that she'd overheard from across the ballroom. I finally looked in the mirror, she said, and I didn't like what I saw. The months passed slowly after that, but they passed differently. Catherine started a discussion group for other inmates. White women mostly convicted of various white-collar crimes. They talked about privilege, about bias, about the ways they'd hurt people without even realizing it. Some of them got defensive. Some of them walked out. But some of them listened. One woman, a former bank executive named Patricia, broke down in tears during a session. I never thought of myself as racist, she said. I have black friends. I voted for Obama. But when I really look at my decisions, the patterns. It's not about thinking of yourself as racist, Catherine said quietly. It's about recognizing that we were raised in a system that taught us certain people matter more than others. We absorbed that without questioning it, and then we acted on it without seeing what we were doing. So what do? We start seeing. That's the first step. We pay attention to who we dismiss without thinking, who we assume doesn't belong, who we treat differently without noticing. Catherine paused. And then we choose differently. Every time. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Patricia wiped her eyes. Do you think people can really change? I don't know. Catherine's voice was honest. But I know they have to try. Because the alternative is staying exactly who they are. And for some of us, that's not good enough. Meanwhile, beyond the prison walls, the world kept moving. Horizon Real Estate Technologies closed a Series B funding round of $400 million. Jasmine Williams was on the cover of Forbes, named one of the most influential entrepreneurs under 40. Michael Chen became the youngest Asian American VP in Google's history. His speech at a tech diversity summit went viral, viewed 40 million times. Carlos Rivera's scholarship fund had now sent 47 students to college. He'd quit corporate America, entirely dedicated himself full-time to mentorship and education. Marcus Thompson's fund grew to $4 billion. He'd invested in 62 companies led by underrepresented founders. Combined valuation $18 billion. The ripple effects of Catherine's cruelty had somehow transformed into waves of positive change. The people she'd tried to hold down had risen higher than she ever had. And in her cell, Catherine Sterling slowly, painfully began to become someone new. Not because she wanted redemption, not because she thought she deserved forgiveness, but because the alternative was staying exactly who she'd been. And that person had destroyed everything she touched. 14 months into her sentence, Catherine received an unexpected visitor. She walked into the meeting room to find an elderly black woman sitting alone at a table. Gray hair, kind eyes, something familiar about her face. Ms. Sterling, please sit down, Catherine sat confused. Do I know you? No, but you know my son. The woman smiled slightly. I'm Dorothy Thompson, Marcus's mother. Catherine's breath caught. I don't understand. Why are you here? Because my son asked me not to come. And I've never been very good at doing what Marcus tells me. Dorothy's eyes crinkled. He said you're not worth my time. He said you're facing your own consequences, and we should leave it at that. He's right. Maybe. Dorothy leaned forward. But I'm 73 years old, Ms. Sterling. I've lived through segregation. I've been called every name you can imagine. I've watched my son face barriers I thought we'd left behind generations ago. I needed to see for myself. See what? Who you are now. Whether you're the same woman who told my son to know his place. Catherine felt tears forming. I don't know who I am anymore. That's progress. Dorothy's voice was unexpectedly gentle. The woman who humiliated my son was very certain about who she was. Certain she was right. Certain she was better. Certainty like that is dangerous. I'm so sorry. For what I did. For who I was. I know. Dorothy reached across the table, placed her wrinkled hand over Catherine's. My husband left when Marcus was 6. I raised that boy alone, working 3 jobs, telling him every day that he was worthy, that he was brilliant, that no one could limit his potential unless he let them. He turned out extraordinary. He turned out like his mama raised him. Strong, kind, forgiving. Dorothy squeezed Catherine's hand. Too forgiving sometimes. He wanted to hate you. For about 5 minutes after that video. Then he couldn't. It's not in his nature. How can he not hate me? Because hate takes energy, and Marcus would rather spend that energy building something beautiful than tearing something down. Dorothy released her hand, sat back. My daughter-in-law, Maya. God rest her soul, she taught him that. Hurt people, but healed people build. His wife. Breast cancer. 3 years ago. Marcus held her hand until the very end, never left her side. Dorothy's eyes glistened. He'd just closed his biggest deal. Could have celebrated. Instead, he came home and spent 6 months caring for a dying woman and their little girl. Catherine thought about her own marriage. The coldness, the distance, the way she'd treated Thomas like another employee to manage. He's a good man. The best man I know. Dorothy stood. I came here to tell you something, Ms. Sterling. I came to tell you that I don't forgive you. What you did to my son, to all those people, that doesn't get forgiven. Not by me. Catherine nodded. She understood. But I also came to tell you that I see you're trying. The discussion groups, the reading programs, the way you're spending your time here. Dorothy moved toward the door. That matters. Not enough to erase what you did, but enough to show you might become someone worth being. Thank you for coming. Don't thank me. Prove me right. Dorothy paused at the door. My granddaughter asked Marcus once if mean people could learn to be nice. He said he didn't know, but he hoped so, because everyone deserves the chance to become better. He told me to look in the mirror. And did you? I'm still looking, every day. I don't like what I see, but I'm not looking away anymore. Dorothy studied her for a long moment. Then she nodded, once turned and walked out. Catherine sat alone in the meeting room for a long time afterward. 4 more months passed. And finally, the day came when Catherine Sterling walked out of federal prison, a free woman. She had $437 to her name. A bus ticket to Miami. A halfway house address where she'd spend her first 90 days of supervised release. No company, no mansion, no designer clothes, just a woman alone starting over. The bus ride took 12 hours. Catherine spent it staring out the window, watching America scroll past, thinking about who she'd been and who she wanted to become. She had 500 hours of community service ahead. Teaching diversity awareness. The irony wasn't lost on her. The woman who'd destroyed careers through prejudice, now required to teach others how not to make the same mistakes. Maybe that was the point. Maybe that was her one chance to make something meaningful out of the wreckage. The bus pulled into the Miami station. Catherine gathered her small bag and stepped off into the humid evening air. A new city, a new life, a new chance. She didn't know if she deserved it, but she was going to try to earn it. One day at a time. 1 year after her release, Catherine Sterling stood before a community college auditorium filled with 300 students. She wore simple clothes now. No designer labels, no expensive jewelry, just a plain blouse and slacks that she'd bought at Target with money earned from her part-time job at a nonprofit. "My name is Catherine Sterling," she began, "and 3 years ago, I refused to shake a black man's hand at a professional conference." The room was silent. Most of them had seen the video. Most of them already knew who she was. "I told him to know his place. I called him a diversity hire. I assumed he had nothing to offer because he didn't look like the successful people I was used to seeing." A young woman in the front row crossed her arms, skeptical, waiting. "That man was Marcus Thompson. He controls $3.5 billion in investments. He's funded some of the most successful companies in America, and I treated him like he was worthless." Catherine paused. Let the words settle. "I'm not here to ask for sympathy. I'm not here to make excuses. I'm here because the court ordered me to complete 500 hours of community service teaching diversity awareness. And I'm here because I have something to say that I wish someone had said to me 30 years ago." She clicked to her first slide. A photo of herself from 5 years earlier. Confident, polished, powerful. This woman thought she wasn't racist. She had black colleagues. She donated to charities. She voted for diverse candidates. She checked all the boxes that let her believe she was one of the good ones. She clicked again. A mugshot. Orange jumpsuit. Hollow eyes. This woman discovered she was wrong. The room stirred. Catherine continued. "Racism isn't just burning crosses and using slurs. It's assumptions. It's deciding who belongs and who doesn't based on how they look. It's treating people differently and telling yourself it's about standards or culture fit or qualifications when really it's about bias you won't admit you have." She spent the next hour walking through case studies, real examples, her own decisions dissected with brutal honesty. "I passed over a Latina woman for promotion because I thought she was too emotional. I realize now that I'd never called a white woman emotional for expressing the same passion in meetings. I asked an Asian American engineer where he was really from. He was born in Cleveland. His family had been in America for 4 generations. I told a black marketing coordinator to tone down her personality. I never once told a white employee the same thing." After each example, she asked the same question. What assumption was I making? What bias was driving my decision, and how could I have chosen differently? The students engaged reluctantly at first, then more openly. Questions flew. Challenges arose. Catherine answered all of them without defensiveness. "How do we know you're really changed?" the skeptical woman in the front row finally asked. "How do we know this isn't just an act to rebuild your reputation?" Catherine considered the question carefully. "You don't know. You can't know. And honestly, I'm not sure it matters." She paused. "Whether I'm genuinely changed or performing change doesn't change the facts I'm sharing with you. Doesn't change the lessons you can learn from my mistakes. Doesn't change the choices you'll make in your own careers. So why should we listen to you? Because I'm proof that anyone can be blind to their own bias. I was educated, successful, surrounded by smart people, and I still hurt dozens of employees without seeing what I was doing." Catherine's voice dropped. "If it could happen to me, it could happen to you. Unless you choose to see what I refuse to see." The session ended with scattered applause. Not enthusiastic, but not hostile either. Afterward, the skeptical woman approached Catherine in the hallway. "I'm Destiny," she said. "I'm studying business administration." "Hello, Destiny." My older sister worked in corporate America for 8 years. 3 different companies. Same story every time. Passed over. Underpaid. Told she wasn't leadership material. Destiny's jaw tightened. She left the industry completely. Works as a teacher now. Makes half what she could have earned. "I'm sorry. Are you? Or is that just something you say now because you got caught?" Catherine met her eyes directly. "I'm sorry because I understand now what I didn't understand before. Your sister's experience wasn't unique. It was systemic. And I was part of that system. I enforced it. I benefited from it. I told myself I was just maintaining standards, when really I was maintaining walls. Words are easy." "You're right." Catherine reached into her bag, pulled out a card. "I volunteer at a career mentorship program for underrepresented students. Saturday mornings at the community center on 5th Street. If you want to come see what I actually do instead of just what I say, you're welcome." Destiny looked at the card. Looked at Catherine. Something shifted in her expression. "Maybe I will. I hope so. Not because I need validation. Because you deserve support from people who understand the obstacles you'll face." Destiny pocketed the card and walked away without another word. Catherine watched her go. One conversation. One moment of connection. It wasn't redemption. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was something. 1,000 miles away, Marcus Thompson was having a very different kind of day. The Tech Diversity Summit had grown every year since its founding. This year, 4,000 attendees filled the Chicago Convention Center. Investors, founders, executives, students. All gathered to talk about building a more equitable industry. Zoe, now 11 years old, sat in the front row with her grandmother. She'd insisted on coming this year, said she wanted to see her daddy do important things. Marcus took the stage to a standing ovation that lasted nearly 2 minutes. "Thank you. Please sit down before I get embarrassed." Laughter rippled through the crowd. 11 years ago, I started Thompson Capital with a simple idea: invest in people, not just pitches. Look for character, not just credentials. Build something that makes the world better, not just richer. He clicked to a slide showing statistics, numbers that would have seemed impossible a decade ago. Since then, we've invested $4.7 billion in companies led by underrepresented founders. Combined valuation of those companies, $23 billion. Jobs created 47,000. Industries transformed, too many to count. Applause erupted again. But I don't want to talk about numbers today. I want to talk about people. The screen changed. Photos appeared. Faces Marcus knew by name. Stories he'd followed from struggle to success. Jasmine Williams started Horizon Real Estate Technologies in a studio apartment with $2,000 and a dream. Today, her company is worth $2.3 billion. She employs 1,400 people and has transformed how Americans buy and sell homes. Jasmine stood in the audience, waved to the crowd. The applause was thunderous. Michael Chen left a toxic workplace where he was told Asians couldn't lead. Today, he's the chief technology officer at one of the largest tech companies in the world. His team has filed 200 patents in the last 5 years. Michael stood as well, tears in his eyes. Carlos Rivera was paid $40,000 less than his white colleague for identical work. Today, his scholarship fund has sent 83 students to college. 83 young people who might have been overlooked just like he was. Carlos rose to standing ovation. These stories matter. Not because they prove that hard work always wins. It doesn't. Not because they show that talent always rises to the top. It doesn't. These stories matter because they show what's possible when someone believes in you. When someone gives you a chance. When someone sees your potential instead of your packaging. Marcus paused. The room was completely still. 3 years ago, I was humiliated at a conference in Miami. A woman looked at my clothes and the color of my skin and decided I didn't belong. She refused to shake my hand. She told me to know my place. A murmur rippled through the audience. That moment could have defined me, could have made me bitter, could have convinced me that the system was too broken to change. He shook his head slowly. But I had a choice. We always have a choice. I chose to respond with excellence instead of anger. I chose to build instead of tear down. I chose to prove that the people she dismissed were exactly the people who would change the world. The screen filled with images. Successful founders, thriving companies, changed industries. This is what overlooked looks like when it has a billion-dollar exit. The standing ovation seemed to go on forever. When the crowd finally settled, Marcus continued with a quieter voice. My wife Maya died 6 years ago. Cancer took her body, but it couldn't take what she taught me. He pulled a photo from his pocket. Maya smiling, healthy, alive. The last photo before her diagnosis. She used to say that hurt people, that damage multiplies if we let it. But she also said that healing works the same way. Healed people heal people. Kindness multiplies too if we choose to spread it. He looked at Zoe in the front row. She was crying. Dorothy had her arm around her. My daughter asked me once if mean people could learn to be nice. I told her I didn't know. But I hoped so. Because if they can't, what's the point of all this? What's the point of building and teaching and trying if people can't change? He set down the photo. I still believe people can change. Not all of them. Not easily. But some of them. Given the right circumstances. Given enough consequences. Given enough grace. The crowd was silent. Waiting. The woman who humiliated me in Miami is out of prison now. She teaches diversity awareness workshops as part of her community service. I'm told she's good at it. I'm told she uses her own story as a cautionary tale. Surprised murmurs. I haven't spoken to her. I don't know if I ever will. But I hope she's found some peace. I hope she's becoming someone better. Not for my sake, for hers. And for all the people she'll interact with for the rest of her life. He looked directly into the cameras. Into the eyes of everyone watching. Excellence is the best response to prejudice, not because it changes the prejudiced person, but because it proves them wrong, because it shows the world what's possible, because it lights the way for everyone coming after us. He smiled. My daughter also asked me what I do for work. I told her I find people others have overlooked and I help them shine. He pointed at the audience. That's what we're all here to do, find the overlooked. Lift them up, give them chances no one gave us, build something so beautiful, so successful, so undeniable that prejudice becomes irrelevant. His voice rose. They will underestimate us, let them. They will dismiss us, let them. They will tell us to know our place, let them. He paused. And then let's show them exactly what our place looks like when we define it ourselves. The standing ovation shook the walls. 4,000 people on their feet, cheering, crying, believing. Zoe pushed through the crowd and ran onto the stage. Marcus scooped her up, held her tight as cameras flashed and the world watched. I'm proud of you, Daddy, she whispered in his ear. I'm proud of you too, baby girl. More than all the stars. After the keynote, Marcus found himself surrounded by young entrepreneurs seeking advice. He gave each one his full attention, listened to their ideas, offered guidance, handed out business cards with genuine invitations to follow up. One young man lingered until the crowd thinned, black mid-20s nervous energy barely contained. Mr. Thompson, sir, I'm Darius Jackson. I have a startup, real estate technology. I've been turned down by 17 investors. 17 is a lot. They all say the same thing. Love the idea, not sure about the team. Which means they're not sure about me. Darius's jaw tightened. I've heard your story 100 times. The video, the conference, how you handled it. I've watched your keynotes when I wanted to give up. You're the reason I'm still trying. Tell me about your startup. For the next 20 minutes, Darius pitched his idea. Commercial real estate efficiency platform, AI-driven analysis. Potential to save the industry billions annually. Marcus asked questions, probed weaknesses, tested assumptions. How much are you looking for? 2 million to start. Proof of concept. Then we scale. Send your materials to my office. Marcus handed him a card. I can't promise anything, but I can promise someone will look at it seriously. Really look. Not just check a box. Darius's eyes glistened. Thank you. That's all I've ever wanted. A real chance. That's all any of us want. Marcus shook his hand firmly. Remember something, Darius. The people who turn you down aren't judging your worth. They're revealing their limitations, their inability to see what's right in front of them. How do you not get angry after everything? Who says I don't get angry? Marcus smiled slightly. I get angry all the time, but I've learned to channel it, to use it as fuel instead of letting it burn me up. Every rejection is motivation. Every dismissal is proof that we need to build our own tables. Darius nodded slowly. Build our own tables. Exactly. And when you do remember to make room for the people coming after you, that's how we win. Not by fighting them, by outgrowing them, by making their prejudice obsolete. They shook hands again, and Darius disappeared into the crowd with new hope in his eyes. Dorothy appeared at Marcus's elbow with Zoe in tow. You've been standing here for 3 hours, she said. Even Maya would tell you to sit down. Maya would tell me to keep going as long as someone needed help. Maya would also tell you that you can't pour from an empty cup. Dorothy squeezed his arm. Your daughter wants ice cream, and I think her father could use some too. Marcus looked at Zoe. Her face was earnest pleading. Please, Daddy. You promised after the speech we could get the chocolate kind with the sprinkles. I did promise that, didn't I? You never break promises. That's what Mommy said. The mention of Maya hit him like it always did. Soft but deep. Let's go get ice cream, baby girl. They walked out of the convention center into the Chicago evening. The city sparkled around them. Ordinary people living ordinary lives, unaware of the extraordinary conversations happening inside. At the ice cream shop, Zoe climbed onto a stool and ordered a sundae nearly as big as her head. Dorothy got vanilla. Marcus got nothing content to watch his daughter enjoy herself. Daddy, Zoe said between bites, do you think Mommy watched your speech today? I think she watches every day, sweetheart. I felt her in the room. When you talked about her, it got warm. Zoe touched her chest. Right here. Marcus felt his throat tighten. I felt it too. Do you think she's proud of us? I know she is. She's the proudest angel in heaven. Zoe nodded satisfied and returned to her sundae. Dorothy watched the exchange with tears in her eyes. She reached across the table and squeezed her son's hand. Your father would be proud too, you know, if he'd stuck around long enough to see who you became. I don't think about him much anymore. I know. That's probably healthy. Dorothy paused. But I think about him sometimes. Wonder what he'd say if he saw you now. A billionaire. A philanthropist. A father who actually shows up. He'd probably ask for money. Dorothy laughed despite herself. Probably. But maybe he'd also feel ashamed, seeing what he could have been part of, what he threw away. His loss. His loss. Your gain. And Zoe's gain. And everyone you've helped along the way. Dorothy's voice softened. You broke the cycle, baby. That's everything. In Miami, Catherine was ending her day very differently. She'd completed her 500 hours of community service 6 months ago, but she kept volunteering, kept showing up at the community center, kept teaching workshops that no one required her to teach. Tonight, she was meeting with Destiny. The skeptical student from that first presentation had become an unexpected regular at the Saturday mentorship sessions, then a weekly coffee meeting, then something approaching friendship. I got the internship. Destiny said as soon as Catherine sat down. The Goldman one. The Goldman one. Destiny's face split into a grin. They flew me to New York, put me up in a hotel, 3 rounds of interviews, and they picked me. Destiny, that's incredible. I almost didn't apply. You know that, right? I almost talked myself out of it. Figured someone like me didn't have a chance at a place like that. What changed your mind? You did. Hearing your story. Seeing what happens when people let their assumptions go unchallenged. Destiny stirred her coffee. You made me realize that if I didn't try, I was making their decision for them. Rejecting myself before they could reject me. And they didn't reject you. They didn't reject me. Destiny laughed. They actually fought over me. 3 different departments wanted me. I had to choose. Which one did you pick? Asset management, best training program, fastest path to the work I actually want to do. Catherine felt something unfamiliar. Pride. Not in herself, in someone else. You're going to be incredible, Destiny. You know what's funny? Destiny leaned forward. When I first met you, I wanted you to fail. Wanted your little redemption tour to collapse. Wanted you to prove that people like you can't really change. What about now? Now I think maybe change is possible. Not easy, not automatic, but possible. If someone wants it badly enough, if they do the work. Do you think I've done the work? Destiny considered the question seriously. I think you're doing it. Present tense. I don't think there's a finish line where you get to say, I'm fixed, now I'm good. I think it's a constant choice. Every day, every interaction, choosing to see people instead of making assumptions about them. That's very wise for someone your age. Yeah, well, Destiny shrugged. I've had good teachers, even the unlikely ones. They finished their coffee. Destiny headed home to celebrate with her family. Catherine walked to the bus stop alone. The evening air was warm. The city hummed around her. Ordinary people living ordinary lives. 3 years ago, she'd been one of the most powerful women in real estate. Private jets, executive suites, magazine covers. Now she rode the bus and lived in a studio apartment and counted every dollar. And somehow she was happier than she'd ever been. Not happy. That felt too strong. But content. At peace. Something she'd never experienced when she had everything. Her phone buzzed. Email from the community center director. Catherine. I wanted to let you know that we've received a donation specifically earmarked for our diversity mentorship program. The donor wishes to remain anonymous, but they mentioned that your workshops inspired them to give. The amount is significant, enough to expand our program to 3 additional locations. You've helped us change hundreds of lives, and now we can reach thousands. Thank you for everything you do. Catherine read the email twice, then a 3rd time. She didn't know who the donor was. Didn't need to know. What mattered was that something good was growing from the ashes of her destruction. That night, she sat at her small desk and wrote a letter she'd been composing in her head for 3 years. Mr. Thompson, I don't expect you to read this. I don't expect a response. I'm writing because I need to say something and you deserve to hear it. 3 years ago, you extended your hand to me. I refused it. I insulted you. I tried to make you feel small because I was terrified of my own inadequacy. You responded with dignity, with grace, with a quiet strength that I've thought about every day since. You told me to look in the mirror. I've been looking. I don't always like what I see, but I'm getting better, slowly, painfully, one day at a time. I've taught hundreds of workshops now, shared my story with thousands of people, used my failures as warnings, my mistakes as lessons. It doesn't erase what I did. It doesn't make up for the people I hurt, but maybe it prevents someone else from becoming what I was. Your mother visited me in prison. She said you hoped I would use my time to become someone better. I'm trying, Mr. Thompson. Every day I'm trying. I don't ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that your words mattered. Your dignity mattered. Your example mattered. You showed me what strength really looks like. It's not about tearing others down. It's about building something so meaningful that hatred becomes irrelevant. I hope you and your daughter are well. I hope your fund keeps changing lives. I hope the world becomes more like what you're building. With genuine respect, Catherine Sterling. She sealed the letter, addressed it, mailed it the next morning. She never received a response. She hadn't expected one. But 6 months later, an invitation arrived in her mailbox. The 5th Annual Tech Diversity Summit, Chicago Convention Center. No personalized note, just the standard invitation packet. But at the bottom, handwritten in neat script, were 5 words. Your seat will be waiting. Catherine stared at those words for a very long time. Then she booked a flight to Chicago. The morning of the summit, Marcus Thompson woke early. Zoe was already dressed, bouncing with excitement. Is today the big speech day? Today's the big speech day. Can I sit in the front row again? You can sit wherever you want, baby girl. Zoe threw her arms around him. I love summit day. Everyone's so happy, and there's always good snacks. Marcus laughed. Is that why you come for the snacks? The snacks and watching you make people believe in themselves. She pulled back, suddenly serious. That's your superpower, Daddy. Making people believe. Where did you hear that? Grandma said it. She said Mommy made you believe, and now you make everyone else believe too. Marcus felt Maya's presence so strongly in that moment, it almost knocked him over. Your grandma's pretty smart. She said that too. At the convention center, 4,000 seats filled rapidly. The energy was electric. 5 years of growth, of success, of changed lives, all gathered in one space. Marcus spotted Catherine in the back corner. Simple clothes, no pretense, watching quietly. Their eyes met across the crowded room. Marcus nodded once, a small gesture, an acknowledgement. Catherine nodded back. Then Marcus turned and walked to the stage for his keynote. Welcome to the 5th Annual Tech Diversity Summit, he began. Every year this room gets bigger. The stories get better. The proof gets stronger. He clicked to his first slide. $23 billion, 47,000 jobs, 83 scholars. Numbers that spoke louder than any speech. But today, I want to talk about something harder than success. I want to talk about forgiveness. The room went silent. We've built something incredible together. We've proven that overlooked talent is just untapped potential. We've shown that diversity isn't charity, it's competitive advantage. We've changed an industry, and we're just getting started. He paused. But what happens to the people who tried to stop us? The gatekeepers who dismissed us? The executives who looked at our skin color and decided we didn't belong? He let the question hang. Some of them double down, get more bitter, more entrenched. They'll never change, and we can't waste energy on them. Nods throughout the audience. But some of them wake up. Some of them face consequences and actually learn. Some of them become allies instead of obstacles. He looked toward the back corner, toward Catherine. Forgiveness isn't about letting people off the hook. It's about releasing the poison from our own hearts. It's about choosing not to carry their hatred with us into our future. His voice dropped. My wife Maya believed that everyone deserves the chance to become better. She believed that healing spreads the same way hurt does. One person at a time, one choice at a time. He smiled. I still believe that, even after everything, especially after everything. The speech continued, statistics and stories and calls to action. But that moment lingered in the air. That message of grace amid justice. Afterward, Catherine approached Marcus for the first time in 3 years. Mr. Thompson? Ms. Sterling. They stood facing each other. So much history between them. So much pain. So much growth. Thank you for the invitation, Catherine said. I wasn't sure you'd want me here. I wasn't sure either. But my daughter convinced me. Your daughter? She asked if mean people could learn to be nice. I told her I hoped so. Marcus paused. She said hoping wasn't enough. She said someone had to give them a chance to prove it. Catherine's eyes glistened. She sounds like her mother. She is. More every day. Silence stretched between them. Not uncomfortable, just weighted with everything that had happened and everything that could never unhappen. I read your letter, Marcus finally said. I appreciated it. I meant every word. I know. He extended his hand. I think we got off on the wrong foot 3 years ago. Catherine looked at his hand. The same hand she'd refused. The same gesture she'd rejected with such contempt. This time she took it. I'm Catherine Sterling. I've made terrible mistakes. I'm trying to do better. I'm Marcus Thompson. I believe people can change. Welcome to the summit. They shook hands, firm, brief, historic. Then Marcus walked away to greet other attendees, and Catherine stood alone in the crowd, tears streaming down her face. Not redemption. That wasn't possible. Not forgiveness. That wasn't Marcus's to give. But acknowledgement. Recognition. A door left open instead of slammed shut. It was more than she deserved, and exactly what she needed to keep going. The summit continued around her. Success stories and investment announcements and standing ovations for founders who'd overcome impossible odds. In the front row, Zoe Thompson watched her father change the world one handshake at a time. In the back corner, Catherine Sterling watched and learned and remembered why she was still trying. And somewhere beyond all of it, Maya Thompson smiled down at the beautiful, messy, imperfect work of human beings, choosing to be better than their worst moments. Because that's what healing looks like. Not perfect. Not complete. Not tied up in neat bows. Just people making choices. Every day. Every interaction. Every extended hand either accepted or rejected. The hate that Catherine Sterling had carried for 50 years nearly destroyed her. It cost her everything. Her company, her marriage, her freedom, her identity. But from that destruction, something unexpected grew. Something small and fragile at first, but persistent. A chance. A choice. A path forward. She would never be the hero of this story. That role belonged to Marcus and Jasmine and Michael and Carlos, and all the others who'd turned their pain into power. But maybe she didn't have to be the villain forever either. Maybe she could be what she'd become, a warning and a witness, living proof that the walls we build to keep others out eventually become prisons that keep us trapped inside. And maybe that was enough. Maybe that was exactly enough. Because in the end, the story isn't about one woman's fall or one man's rise. It's about all of us. Every choice we make, every assumption we challenge or accept, every hand we extend or refuse. We are all writing this story every single day. The only question is what we want it to say. Marcus Thompson chose excellence over anger. He chose building over tearing down. He chose to light the way for others instead of cursing the darkness. And because of that choice, thousands of lives changed. Billions of dollars flowed to overlooked founders. An entire industry began to transform. One handshake refused became a movement that couldn't be stopped. One moment of cruelty became a catalyst for generational change. One man's dignity in the face of hatred became a blueprint for everyone watching. This is the truth that Catherine Sterling learned too late, but finally understood. How you treat people when you think no one important is watching reveals exactly who you are. And who you are determines everything that follows.